Hello and welcome to another episode of Power On Podcast, Cowboy Bebops and their Hard Luck edition. I am one of your hosts, Taylor, and with me is the I don't know what to go with. We'll just go with the introspective Sushi B. How you doing?
I am doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing fine. I'm doing good. Doing well.
You're ready for a bit of an emotional episode here?
Yeah. This is an episode that really hits pretty hard for people in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause this is where things start to how to say it? It starts to turn into the Ouroboros or the snail. The snail. How about the snake? Snake eating its own tail, and the vibe of the show really starts to revert back to episodes of yore, like episodes 1 and 2.
Yep.
But before we get there, we have this one, Hard Luck Woman. And, yeah. I'm ready for this. Are you ready for this?
I am.
All right. So what are some things that you like about this episode?
Well, it's nice to get a bit more Faye focus after she's been kind of out of focus for a little while. So that's good. And knowing that the final episodes really heavily focus on a particular aspect and character of the series.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not only focused on Faye. Like, you see the title and you kind of think like, oh, okay, maybe this is kind of just going to lean into more of Faye's backstory and everything. And you get a bit of a curveball to find out that Ed is just as important in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that those two kind of get a bit of a spotlight here before we get to the end, and they kind of team up, sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, like not intentionally, I suppose, but.
Oh no, it's intentional. It's just
not Ed, maybe on Ed's part so much, but.
This whole episode just shows how much better Ed is than everybody else. Ed tricks Faye into taking them to a place that Ed finds has tasty food.
Yep.
This is also where she had stayed for a couple years before going off and roaming for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then joining the Bebop crew. And then her father is mentioned, and he kind of pops up in little scenes here and there until the end. But he was just at that orphanage like 2 months ago and had left stuff, or left a little thing of him, a holographic sort of image of him and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just I don't know the bounty thing, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Ed's just kind of showing how much better she is than everybody else.
Yeah, and we get to see something about Ed here that's not definitely brought up a lot, and that is just sort of a bit of an emotion out of Ed, and it's still tempered quite a bit here, but. Ed's usually just so carefree and freewheeling and, I don't know, out there, I guess, right? Just sort of not really in the moment and a lot of the time. Just falling forward constantly feels like in the sense of just nothing is phasing Ed in the same way that it might phase the other three.
I don't know if I'd say falling forward, but almost like a top that wobbles. Where it wobbles, sometimes it'll go really wildly, but then it'll like correct itself. I kind of feel like that's Edward a lot of times. There's not really there's a center, but she'll wobble really hard and just into just some wild reactions, emotions, what have you. But then she'll just kind of straighten herself back out to kind of this what she is, which is almost without any sort of confines as a child, is brought up in a way that doesn't really know how to act. So,
Not the best role model.
well, she has no role models
Well,
herself.
I mean, the
So,
role model that is introduced here, though, is certainly not
oh right,
a good role model.
yeah.
And that's where I think of Ed as like falling forward, though, because Ed's like just falling into things in the sense of just like, oh, cool, something to do. Oh, interesting. Just like constantly moving into things and not necessarily with high intention all the time. Just, oh, I can manage this for a while, and then, there goes, that looks interesting, and wanders off and does that. Or, I mean, this whole idea that was in this orphanage for, was it 2 years?
Yeah, she was there for 2 years.
And then now gone for 3.
Right.
So, and maybe Ed has more, because, it's hard to understand what's going on in Ed's mind when it comes to the choices that Ed makes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I just think of it as like falling forward, just not necessarily having a huge target of where to go, but just keep going, keep finding things to do.
Yeah, I guess that's why, like, my imagery more so keeps her sort of not necessarily locked in place, but just sort of spinning in circles.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't, and it's because there's no rhyme or reason. Mm-hmm. So I guess I can't really. That's why I guess I kind of push back against the forward.
I mean, I see both. Yeah, like I see what you mean.
I get where you're going.
Yeah, I think both aspects do make sense. It's just I think we're looking at it a little bit differently in the way, because Ed is such a complex character. There's not a very clear distinction, and now that we're going to lose Ed, we will never get that answer.
I don't know if it's complex or rather just not. I don't mean this in a dig, but just a very shallow. There isn't maybe a lot of motives behind her actions because there simply aren't.
Mm-hmm. Possibly, yeah.
That's kind of where I steer with her. Is that it's, and that's not necessarily that's a bad thing. Like you can be a very, non-complex. I don't want to say shallow, but just a very simple. I like to say simple. Mm-hmm. You can be a very simple character, but also just be very, maybe even just misunderstood or just. I really feel like Ed's arc is the kind of coming around to finding or trying to figure out exactly what it is you want to do with your life, that sort of thing, and and that's why she went with the Bebop crew.
Right.
Was to figure out, okay, do I want to really be on Earth? Like, I feel like I'm totally dunking on it without what I'm able to hack and do. So.
Bit of a coming of age, sort of.
Yeah.
Like, not in the traditional sense, like, where see other stories, right, where, reaching puberty and this and that. Like, Ed seems a little bit young for that yet, but a little ahead of the game in the same sense of...
No slaying of dragons.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So. Something I really like with this episode is it jumps back to the Speak Like a Child and how it ended. Faye is watching that old video, the Betamax tape, but she's also still...
The Sani or whatever.
Yeah. Is still, still desperately trying to search for the answer that she thinks she's going to get by rediscovering her memories or, being able to remember what happened. Mm-hmm. She's really slipped into this. If I can figure this, if I can just remember, my answers will be clear and my problems will go away.
Right.
Like, at least to some degree, I'll know where I belong. Mm-hmm. So that's like, as she's struggling with that, you have the, Sister Clara, I think is her name, gives the mention about, like, people must cherish whatever ties they have, which makes sense for the world that, she lives in, is also, running an orphanage. It is a very, in a social kind of way, a very broken society.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of an unfortunate thing that we're looking at here is it's how just broken it is.
Right. I mean, the interesting parallel here too with Ed sort of getting an answer that Faye is seeking is in unique story beat here, and then ultimately both of them don't really succeed. I guess after Ed does get an answer that Faye's still looking for, we get the weird bit of flashback for Faye. That's not a. I mean, it tells enough. Like we piece it together through the vision, but not enough to really give an answer to Faye, I guess. And like just to watch it slip away from both of them, and how for Ed it's opportunity, but for Faye it's still what's the word I want? Like it's just like another heartbreak for Faye.
Well, Faye, you get this going into this is why I feel like the last 3 episodes it's more of a 3-parter than a 2-parter in a certain way, just because they do back to back to back very clearly. Faye's it's that ephemeral, like, you cannot have this back.
Right.
It has been ripped from you.
It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, you are. She makes that kind of comment to. She runs into somebody she actually went to high school with, kind of thing, who's elderly, and she's not, and she's just like, I'm a ghost. Like, that's from the past. As cheeky as that is, and whatnot, it's part of that I think is her inability to come to terms with that. So she's just putting up that front to just be like, just yeah, okay. I don't really remember you, but like to some degree. But then once it does finally sink in, and she goes back, and then there's just nothing there but desolation. It's like, you can't have this. And you said it perfectly for Ed, I feel like, is that Ed's in action really highlights that life is quick to move on. So if you don't hold dearly to those things, it'll escape your grasp real quick.
Right. And
that isn't necessarily that it's bad, but if that's what you're going for, you will lose that if you are inactive, if you do not act. And I just that's just a fantastic little bit. It's unfortunate. I mean, Ed's at least got the ability to reconnect and re-find her father, but Faye is holding a very short end of that stick. So,
yeah, for sure. And just the different points of their life and everything makes that easier or harder to move on. And I don't know, like just trying to think if you or I were in that spot where Faye is at, I don't know what I would do, right? And she's still in that grieving process, and like the remorse and trying to find the answer. And then I don't remember the last 2 episodes very well, but I remember a very striking part of, I don't remember if it's the very final episode or the penultimate that it shows that, but there is that moment that's coming. I know it's coming, where Faye does try to basically find something to say, yes, like, I need this moment. I'm not going to let this moment leave. And then there's nothing she can do. She can't get the moment, or she can't, carry forward on something.
To borrow and paraphrase from Poe, the sands of time, the tighter you try to grasp them, it just kind of slips through your fingers.
Right.
Kind of thing. Yeah, Faye unfortunately gets, she gets a lot of body shots. And she'll pull through. But it'll certainly galvanize her or jade her in a certain way. That's yeah. But with this episode, yeah, just that. I get it to some degree, like, and that's she has had her life ripped from her. But I think depending on how I think everybody can kind of contextualize that in a similar degree, maybe not to the same extremes, of course, but of having something lost in childhood that you can't just go back to.
Right.
And unfortunately for her, it's not just the passing of a pet or family member or a friend or being moved elsewhere entirely and having to disconnect from all that. It is being ripped from from her present and being flung 50 years down the road.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of similar to the like the Captain America character is kind of in a similar vein, right? He's he's the man out of time, right? He's been frozen in time for, well, at that point it was only like 20 some odd years when they reintroduced the character, but modern audiences kind of more know it now as like I don't know, what did the past 70 years or something?
Okay.
Oh, like he's in the movies and stuff, right? They try to present it like present day at the time of those movies is equal to the present day of time. So like when the Avengers movie came out in 2012, like that was 2012 in that movie as well, kind of thing. So it was just like 70 years or whatever by that point. So yeah, it's very similar, right, for Faye. And that I wouldn't, and I was thinking as well, like, has Faye, not only because she's been frozen in time, but what other potential psychological issues could have occurred while, like, being doused with some sort of chemicals or injected with some kind of medicines or vitamins or whatever it might be that could have altered her state to some degree, because she obviously had to be put into this cryostasis. So that's never really touched upon if that's affected her also in some way.
Right.
If it's not just like a psychological thing that's just typical, brain trauma, but if there's something more, we only get that little bit of hint of that and we don't even know if that's still abundantly clear, right? The agency that put her under, that was kind of left a bit murky.
Yeah, a lot of question marks on that.
Yeah.
Because there's that comment about, so she's healing up nicely. Like,
you owe us $8 billion or whatever.
Right. So it's like, there is the, whatever trauma's not ever really, I don't want to say conquered, but you know what I mean?
Addressed?
They're not, yeah, addressed or just, work through, just sort of, if you have a harrowing experience, there's going to be, your brain's going to, for better and also for a lot worse, will kind of cycle through that continuously and go back to it. But if it's a trauma that you can't really recall, does that loop just keep going and just sort of keeps on adding more weight? Yeah, it's
short circuits almost, and then it like recircuits itself. Yeah, maybe it's something we won't unfortunately get to know more of it, and we don't know if she's also had psychosocial supports or anything. It doesn't seem like it. So
well, no, because the first people she gets are a bunch of
that's I mean, like she doesn't seem like she's ever sought out or been offered or even knows where to access.
Well, I think her problem is that every time that she's tried to, at least this is what I would get out of her character, is every time that she has tried to either reach out for help or get help, it's usually somebody trying to do something nefarious.
Right.
So
And the closest thing she's gotten that wasn't is this band of misfits.
Exactly.
Who kind of just don't care.
Yeah, and so in a way
they do, but they don't.
Yeah, the duality, like I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, that they can care, but it's almost like a very guy way of caring of
pick up your socks.
It's very just very like distant.
Right. Well, what was the episode where she was off planet, right? And then she was like, "You're coming to get me," and they were all kind of dismissive of her. She was on that intercom, like
with the speak like a child, where she was gambling with
like
and stuff.
Ed got in contact, and then she was at the hound races or whatever she was at, and then the tone of her voice, right, like just the kind of desperate cry for help. Like it's not like shrieking but just the tone of voice, clearly somebody who has attention to someone who's been, working through some sort of psychosocial issues or whatever. You can kind of gauge to some degree that this person needs your help of some kind. And they just kind of like, oh, well, she's just out gambling again. Like, I guess, whatever, if she comes back. But they've got their own baggage, so that doesn't help matters either, right? When you
right.
Misery, what is it? Misery,
Loves company.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Well, I was gonna say with that, but it's also, this is stuff that's in current society that people rail on for guy relationships, because a lot of times they don't quote unquote open up about this, but it also could be because either maybe they don't want to, or maybe it's just not something that works out for them.
Right.
You can't expect everybody to be able to work through their problems in the same kind of manner.
That can be men and women. Unfortunately, that's that stereotype, right? Of men need to just suck it up, and yes, there still is some of that unfortunate attitude, right? Of you're a hockey player or you're a football player, like you just need to suck it up and play harder, fight through the pain, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it gets into what's the kind of the mental armor, because not just in a physical sense, but if it's just kind of the doldrums of everyday living, right? Kind of thing. What is it? What kind of purpose do you find for yourself? And or do you even need to have a purpose to for that sort of thing? It gets into a lot of unfortunate things, and none of them are equipped to deal with that.
No, I mean, Jet may be the closest one to can, at least from a logical sense, look at it and say, like, if he's got some awareness of previous piece of technology or something that can address those type, but he doesn't have the emotional range still to open up, because he is such a logical thinker for the most part, and Spike is such a irrational thinker, like very much in the moment, spur of the moment, jump at it, do it kind of thing. And Ed is just all over the place. So
Ed's too
frenetic,
naive, immature in a lot of ways.
Ed shouldn't be expected to have to handle that.
And not to say that she couldn't be able to, it's just, at least as her character is, it just doesn't really warrant it.
Right. Had a lot of life experience at Ed's age, but not necessarily in the same. There's loss, but it's not in the same way.
What do you think of? As it say, is there more good or bad you want to get into, or?
Yeah, I could say Well, are you looking to move into like the gray and the negatives, or?
Well, I just didn't know where you were sitting, because
I know they're kind of little all over, so.
Well, yeah.
I will say that another moment that it's in the gray because it's frustrating, And that is when Faye comes out of the shower.
Okay.
And is in such a stupor and daze and says sorry to Spike. And then it puts him in such a like confused state as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just frustrating because you just want to punch that guy in the face at that point, right? Like you just want to, come on, man. Like I get it that you're kind of, he obviously enjoys the company of these people to some level of degree, or he would have left a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But to just not even recognize anything when she says sorry to him, and nothing triggers in his brain, like nothing. He just looks at her confused and is like, "What do you mean sorry?" Like,
right.
And so that's a bit annoying to watch. I know we'll get the reasons why, as coming up here, but it's just still like, that sucks. Like another cry for help, right? And falls on deaf ears again.
Yeah, that's glad you're bringing up chalk up another reason for why Spike is a schmuck. The
chalkboard's pretty long now. It's quite the tally.
All right. The this is a middling for me. I don't dislike Appledale. I think it's Appledale.
I can't pronounce it. It's a ridiculously long name.
Yeah, Ed's father. I don't dislike him, but like, I like the line he delivers about they're talking about bringing chaos to order. Got a goal.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they're bringing like that, and as well as when he's telling McIntyre, he just keeps on calling him the wrong name, and he's just like, don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
Which I find is a really interesting kind of thing of, a name is not that important. Like, I kind of had a very similar mindset for a very long time as when I was growing up, because I did not want to attribute negative qualities that I had with experiences that I had with kids that I went to school with in elementary and half in middle school with when I moved to have, I ran into somebody else that was named Kevin or something. Mm-hmm. And well, they're just a jerk as well, because I knew jerks that were named Kevin or Chase and stuff like that. So I kind of get the mentality in a way, but in the same hand, it's kind of like, you could at least remember the guy's name. Come on now.
Right. Yeah, really. Unfortunately, I think that's a thing that can be a trigger for teachers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where you'll have three Kevins who are all alike. Like they will have similar qualities or personality points, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the one who you're like, wow, that one really shined through on whatever that might be, right? Whatever positive thing you can draw upon. Mm-hmm. And then you'll have like three more of that same child's name and be like, oh. So you always have that unfortunate, you'll forget about the one that had those positive qualities. But you always remember the kids that you have the most difficulty with, right? Or that have some very unique, if it's unique needs or whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to remember the kids that were pleasure to have in class, that boring old adage, unless they do become like ultra famous somehow or something. But it's the ones that you had to work the most with that you will have a fondness for somewhere down the line, even if they were a big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a bit of a frustrating character too, because I know what they're trying to represent here and show like the absent-mindedness. And to reflect, okay, like this is his child, and this is why the child is somewhat like this as well. But
I would argue he's not absent-minded.
Mm-hmm.
He's just singularly focused.
Mm-hmm.
And he is obsessed with doing the duty of charting, to bring, order to chaos kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
To buy which I think is an interesting thing, because they're talking about this and Jet's like, this is fruitless because the terrain changes every 2 days.
Right.
Which is also an interesting highlight into Jet's character, in that there's this Jet's like, why are you even trying to do this when it's going to change? But it's like, well, like, we are trying to make things better.
Like his lack of optimism?
Yeah, like, it's a big weakness in Jed's character, because then it's like, why are you even living life? Like, there's always going to be that change. Like, he's regressing back to what he was, you know,
prior to
his personal interventions.
Yeah, well, what's the episode, like his first episode there? Not
Ganymede Elegy.
Thank you, Ganymede Elegy. Like, where it seems like he's able to step forward and move on from that pessimism. But I mean, it is a one-off comment, so I mean, it's still in line with him. But I think he's still shown progress. I think up to this point, on the whole, especially compared to the other crew members.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, Ed's a tricky one. Ed's sort of so all over that it's. But between the three that are carrying so much baggage and weight, I think he's probably made the most forward progress.
I guess couple steps, I guess, is most compared to
the hardest step is the first step is the hardest step of the 1,000-step journey or whatever. I know I'm bungling the whole proverb up, but the first step is the hardest step.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, sorry, I derailed you there. You were going on about Ed's character, or Ed's father's character.
Oh, just
the absent-mindedness, you said.
Yeah, and I see your point too. I having that singular focus is great, and if we're going to go back to the order and chaos piece, well, it's very interesting that one focus of being single-minded and wanting to create order in that one situation or that one part of your life or the lives of others, while completely disregarding everything else around you, including your child, and having no order there, having complete chaos there.
Yeah, but isn't that's so on point for people, though, right?
It can be, but this is pretty extreme, right? This is very extreme.
Yeah, it's
most
an
people
extreme.
Don't drop their child off and go do whatever.
Right, but I think just
I guess they could.
Less the context of the situation, and more the context of what's being said versus what, like the thing you pointed out, like, oh, he's wanting to do this thing, but in trying to do this thing, he's making more chaos on a personal level, and he's just like, oh, well, it's not. Don't sweat the small stuff. We got bigger problems to fix.
Yeah, don't sweat the small stuff, but is he really even thinking of the bigger stuff, like outside of that one notion, right? Like, protect the planet, and maybe in his head, right, protecting the planet, fixing the planet would better Ed's life. Maybe that's what in his mind what the end goal is. It's possible, but there's a large detriment happening by ignoring everything else and only focusing on that one aspect. Though he's really not seeing a bigger picture whatsoever. Or a very skewed worldview of what he believes is the bigger picture. You might as well just make a robot to go do the job
then. Yeah, or enlist the help of Francois to program something that helps kind of make it a reality.
Terraform.
Yeah. So is there anything bad that you didn't? Anything you didn't
like I said, maybe more so. Ed's dad is sort of in the gray, maybe leaning a bit to the bad, because I don't really. I have a hard time buying into the character, especially we don't get enough of the character. It's like you're introducing this character in episode 24, and there's not really been any inclination, for the most part, of like Ed's family or anything like that, and it's just like, well, yeah, we're just gonna kind of drop this in here, and he's some sort of superior martial artist as well. Like,
I don't even know if he's like a superior martial artist. He's just a stout man.
well, he moves with the fleet of wind, though, too. Like, he's obviously got some skills.
It's all those eggs he's eating. It gives him drive.
I guess so. and high cholesterol.
Right. Yeah, he is.
So that was kind of an odd trait I found as well. Like, it's Spike getting sort of put in his place on occasion is I'm okay with it. Like, I'm really okay with it.
Yeah, and he's just kind of like, whatever, dude. Like, he just Spike is throwing everything at him.
Yeah.
And outside of getting into super mad form, Spike, which, whatever, at least on just a physical fight level, no, he's having too many bell peppers and beef without the beef.
Yeah. He's a pretty slim dude, so.
Yeah.
Maybe muscles are getting a little weak.
Right.
I wish he would have broken, because it's so weird too for this character who's like, he's obviously got some level of intelligence, but he's also sort of, because he's that one track mind, as you said,
mm-hmm.
and the seriousness in his face during the fight, and how laser focused he is once that starts happening.
Mm-hmm.
It is very weird. He's just, it's a very weird character. It's hard to get a read on him, especially with only 6-7 minutes of screen time.
yeah, at most.
Yeah, so it's hard to get a read on him, and they're just trying to kind of splash all this stuff to show this character, and don't get enough to really understand him.
Like Jet said in a very early episode, Earthlings are weird. People from Earth are strange. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, as he buys those disgusting peeps, and he's scarfing those things down. Which I heard are not really supposed to be made for human consumption.
Yeah, I mean, I will still stick by the made since 1864 or whatever. No, they've.
Does it say made since or made in 1864?
Yeah, I think it was made in, but that's I think it probably should say made in, because they're awful. Like,
I don't know anyone who likes them.
They have like all these different flavors.
I've seen
they've made like a big comeback in certain ways, I feel like. And I don't know,
like Peeps ice cream and stuff too, isn't there?
Probably. Pepsi had a Peeps flavored Pepsi for a moment, which just like
sewage
people are like,
Peeps.
They're like, oh yeah, it tastes more sugary. I'm like, how can it taste more sugary? It's
already just 100%.
It's already like
sugar.
67 grams of sugar in a 20-ounce bottle.
Well, now it's 80 grams of sugar.
What? This is not a bad point, whatever, but we do have the departing of Ed and Ein from the Bebop crew at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Call me playing in the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the song, I like the song.
Yeah, it's a good song. Good song. I also like that Ed gives Spike a pinwheel.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an interesting thing that she would give him that pinwheel.
Mm-hmm.
Not like it. It's just kind of an interesting interaction that she would give it to him instead of maybe just giving it to Jet or something,
or even just leaving it.
Yeah,
like on a table or something,
or taping it to the
taping
Bebop
it himself. Yeah.
So
that's fair.
But,
I don't know, maybe because Spike was on the way out. Because I don't recall Ed crossing paths with Jet or Faye on the way out.
Right, because Faye's not there at that point.
So maybe that's just the reason. But it's a choice now by the directors to put Spike there.
Right. So, and then like you said, this kind of gives some of those little moments of actual maturity from Ed to be like, hey, you can't come with. Like, and then of course she's like, well, no, do you want to come with? Like, what do you want to do? Okay, come with, let's go. Kind of thing.
Well, I wasn't going to get much out of the rest of the crew at that point.
Right.
It already kind of, once he initially gets rescued, it gets kind of pushed off to the side. Pretty much only does anything unless Ed's involved, more or less.
Exactly. So,
Barks
even the
at
Data Dog.
black blob thing at one point, but
even the Data Dog was like, yeah, this is there is no more growth for me to be had here.
No, unfortunately not.
So that, and also I like the bit where Spike and Jet are stuffing their faces with eggs.
Right. Yeah, and
because
not voicing a single word to each other, just eating away.
Eating, but they're also like upset.
Yeah.
And
you can see there's a bit of kind of reflection, particularly I found with with Jet. Spike too, but
yeah, it seems like Jet. This is where I think that regression really starts to hit a little bit, because that, not necessarily heel turn, but that sort of like, kind of like with any sort of relationship, friendship, what have you, to kind of be spurned at that point is going to be hurtful. And yeah, and they're kind of burying it by stuffing their faces.
No, I mean, people respond differently, right, to trauma, depression, all those things. So, and plus they're probably starving, probably haven't eaten much in a while. So maybe this is sort of a way to curb that emotional pain to a degree by filling the belly.
So that, and Faye's not even around. She's at her former home, just kind of lost. Still lost. So.
Right. Yeah.
Anything you like to add before going into the bounty?
Well, there's a couple of quotes that were kind of funny.
Okay.
Jet had that one about it's a known fact that starvation makes you go insane. Maybe that's why they're stuffing their face at the end. I don't know if it ties into that somehow.
I like the other line that he gives
about the woman's heart.
Yeah, a woman's heart is as fickle as the skies again. I mean, that is a Jet line. That's such a
yeah, definitely falls in line with him. Yeah, I think just kind of looking back here. I think that's good for me. I think.
Okay.
You got anything else?
I was just going to roll into the bounty, in which another highlight for Ed showing that she's better than the rest of them. Tricks their greed into believing that it's a 50 million Wulong bounty on her pops, when it's really just a 50 Wulong bounty. Yeah.
Right.
Oops. So the bounty is 50 Wulongs. So, yeah. I personally enjoy this episode. It is a good one, and it always is. It is a gut punch, because this is the whatever fun there was on the ride. It's like right as it's not before it's docked at the station, but you know how like when a ride ends, it's that like, okay, it hits that point and then it just kind of goes like, kind of gets reeled back into the
station. Where you get that forward jolt as it stops.
Yeah, that's kind of what this is, because now it's being brought back. Right. And so I will give this 100 Wulongs.
Okay, well that was the bounty I was going with as well. So
okay,
yeah, I was thinking 100.
So yeah, but anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, but these last two are going to be interesting to get through now that we've had this one, which was like I said, pretty emotional episode in a lot of regards. And so I am curious because I'm hazy on these last two, and seeing how they wrap up. And again, I know this focuses on a very specific arc, and so I'll be kind of curious to see if I enjoy it or not, I suppose.
Dun 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 dun. Now we also have a movie to get through. So
That's true.
so yeah, the train is quickly coming to a stop. So I guess with that said, thanks for listening, and definitely let us know what your feelings are on Hard Luck Woman, episode 24 of Cowboy Bebop. Yeah. So once again, thanks for listening, and see you, Space Cowboy.